Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me say from the bottom of my heart to every one of you, thank you. We are in this runoff because of you. The Austin political establishment said this was impossible. And the conservative grassroots across Texas, the men and women in this room, stood up and proved them wrong. Thank you for your incredible passion to turn our country around. You know, in my view, this race for U.S. Senate comes down to three very simple questions. The first, is it time for new leadership? Barack Obama is the most radical president this country's ever seen. And our country is in crisis. And in 2010, we saw a tidal wave sweep this country. All over the nation, Americans stood up and said, we are fed up with the same tired establishment incumbents from both parties. And we want new leaders. Leaders like Marco Rubio and Mike Lee and Rand Paul and Pat Toomey and Ron Johnson. Now, fast forward to 2012. The mainstream media wrote the headlines, "The Tea Party is dead." How many of y'all saw what happened in Indiana a few weeks ago? And then in Nebraska. And then just this week with Scott Walker in Wisconsin. As Mark Twain famously put it, rumors of our death were much exaggerated. The second question I think this race comes down to: do we need a fighter? Thank you. As Texans, it's in our blood to stand and fight. I was privileged to serve 5.5 years as the Solicitor General of Texas, serving under Greg Abbott, the finest Attorney General in the entire country. Over and over again, Texas led the nation defending conservative principles. We defended the Ten Commandments monument on the state capitol grounds. We went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we won 5-4. We defended the Pledge of Allegiance when a federal court of appeals struck it down because it includes the words, "one nation under God." We went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we won unanimously. We defended the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. We went to the Supreme Court, and we won 5-4. Right now, I'm incredibly honored to be representing over 3 million veterans all across this country, defending the Mojave Desert Veterans Memorial. A lone white Latin cross that was erected 75 years ago to honor the men and women that gave their lives in World War I. The ACLU sued, seeking to tear down that monument. And the federal court ordered that 75-year-old memorial to our veterans torn down. We went to the U.S. Supreme Court and we won 5-4. And the biggest fight of my tenure was Medellin versus Texas, a case that began when two teenage girls were tragically gang raped and murdered in Houston. And the case took a very, very strange turn when the World Court, the judicial arm of the United Nations, issued an order to the United States to reopen the convictions of 51 murderers. It's the first time in history a foreign court has ever tried to bind the U.S. justice system. Boo is exactly right. But Texas stood up and we fought the World Court. I argued this case twice before the U.S. Supreme Court. On the other side were 90 foreign nations, and on the other side was the President of the United States. The President signed an order that attempted to order the state courts to obey the World Court. And so Texas stood up. We fought the World Court. We fought the United Nations. We fought 90 foreign nations, and we fought the President of the United States. We defended U.S. sovereignty, and we won 6-3. Many of y'all know my dad, Cruz. I got to tell you, I cannot tell you how many Republican women across the state have come up to me and they've said, "Ted, we like you fine. We love your dad." My dad is a pastor just north of Dallas, but he was born in Cuba, and as a child, as a teenager, he fought in the Cuban Revolution, and he was thrown in prison and tortured as a kid. He fled Cuba in 1957. He came to Texas, didn't speak a word of English. Had nothing but $100 sewn into his underwear. He landed in Austin. He worked as a dishwasher, making 50 cents an hour to pay his way through the University of Texas. And he and my mother started a small business, a seismic data processing company in the oil and gas business. So I grew up in Houston as the son of two small business owners. When I was a kid, over and over again, my dad used to say to me, when we faced oppression in Cuba, I had a place to flee to. If we lose our freedom here, where do we go? All of us have a story like that in our background. That's what it means to be an American. We are a people who fled oppression and came seeking freedom, and liberty has never been more threatened than it is today. The third and final question I think this race comes down to is, do the grassroots matter? This race is a test for that proposition. You know, we faced in this race over $10 million in nasty false attack ads trying to convince every Texan that I am a red Chinese communist who wants to eat your children. And you know what? It didn't work, and it didn't work because of each and every one of you. The strength of this campaign has been thousands and thousands of grassroots activists, Republican women across Texas, Tea Party leaders across Texas, precinct chairs across Texas, Just about every conservative leader in the state of Texas has united behind this campaign. From Kelly Shackelford to Kathy Adams, to David Barton, to Peggy Venable, to George P. Bush, to George Strait, to Ernie Angelo, to Tim Lambert. And just about every conservative leader nationally has united behind this campaign. From Sarah Palin to Rick Santorum, to Sean Hannity, to Dr. James Dobson, to Concerned Women of America, to Gun Owners of America, to Mark Levin, to the 5 strongest conservatives in the U.S. Senate, Jim DeMint, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, Pat Toomey, and Tom Coburn. I'm the only candidate in the country all 5 of them are supporting. Now, we are in a dogfight until July 31st. My opponent in this race is a good and decent man, and he is owed respect for his many years in public service. But our nation is in crisis, and we need a fighter. I ask for the support of each and every one of you on July 31st. Come out and vote in the runoff and bring 10 of your friends. If conservatives come together, we will win this race. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers will stand together and turn this country around. I want to close by asking you a couple of questions with apologies to Barack Obama. Can we restore the U.S. Constitution? Yes, we can. Can we retire Harry Reid? Yeah. Can we retake the U.S. Senate? Yeah. Can we repeal Obamacare? Yeah. And can we defeat President Barack Obama? Yeah. That, my friends, is change we can believe in.